Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to the podcast. And unfortunately, this podcast is a little bit, not a little bit, it's a very sad topic I'm going to talk about. And it has to do with school shootings because it's something very prevalent in our society. And it's honestly a sad reality that we find ourselves in. So I'm sure you've all known that in Uvalde, Texas, there was a school shooting that happened 2 days ago where a gunman first shot his grandmother, then went inside the school and shot 19 kids and 2 adults and made their lives rest in peace. It's something that honestly it's occurring over and over again. And this is it's a cycle. The school shooting happens, then we say sorry, then the news cycle just goes to something else because life just goes on and people keep living their lives. They're not stuck in this one problem. And it's just a whole cycle. Then it happens again. Then people feel bad. They might talk about gun control, this and that. Then people forget about it and it happens again. And it's been happening over and over again for a long period of time. And it's something that has to stop. And honestly, one reason I want to talk about it is that there's so many emotions right now because as humans we're emotional, and of course we should be when kids, these are kids, man, that 10 to 9 years old, they shouldn't be dying at this age. They should have a long prosperous life where they could chase many things, any occupation, get married and this and that, whatever they choose. But then to get their lives cut short by an 18-year-old, 18 too, also a young kid too. So it's just honestly, it's a sad situation, and it's something that shouldn't be happening in the society. But it's something that we are living with in America too, because this is a uniquely American problem. And of course, every time this shooting happens, a lot of people tend to bring solutions up, saying universal background checks, reducing the amount of guns in circulation. It's a lot of solutions that honestly I believe that it's not easy. And then they vilify people like politicians, especially the Republicans or the honorary members, which you call me a naive person, but I do believe that I like not over 95% of Americans wants to see a stop to this type of problem. I don't think anyone would want to see kids getting gunned down, regardless if you support the Second Amendment or not. So that's something that I think is disingenuous because you should not be blaming this specific people. Because I understand politicians, they want to get reelected, they want to keep the power, they do some shitty things to keep themselves in power, but they have kids too, and I'm very sure, regardless of how powerful a politician is, that they care about kids in general because they know how it feels like to lose their kid. There's probably a time where the kid went missing or like in the house or something, and they felt scared or something. So like, I'm very sure that they feel sick whenever incidents happen like this. And a lot of people just tend to just brush them off saying, oh, you're not doing enough, you're not doing this and that, which I don't think it's the issue. You can call me naive or whatever, but politicians do want school shootings to stop. Regardless if they're Democrats or Republican, regardless if they support the Second Amendment, the NRA, or any other organizations for that matter. Which brings me to kind of talk about the solutions that they talk about because it happens every mass shooting. And this is something, as someone of my age, is something that has happened, that's not happened, but it's prevalent in my generation, in my society. This is not a millennial issue. This is mostly Generation Z. Most school shootings have happened around our generation. So this is something that, I remember we used to do drills in school of hiding. This was in elementary school. I think this was after Sandy Hook. They started to do drills of, hiding, make sure that, God forbid, if a gunman ever enters our school, he wouldn't be able to see us. And we had to do these drills, and it was so bizarre at the time because a school should be an institution where kids go there to learn and go back home. Learn, make friends, do homework, go back home. There should be no instances where a kid dies in school. But as I said, I sound like a broken record. It's something that is happening in our society. I remember like Sandy Hook was something that it personally affected. Like it affected me, I would say, because I remember I got home from school that day and CNN was on in my house, and I could just see all this, images and these reports, and the presidents crying, the politicians doing all the thing. Like everybody was affected, honestly, and yeah, I felt unsafe. I'm like, okay, what if this happens in school? But I was like, I mean, I was maintaining a good mindset and say, no, this for sure is not happening. Of course, it's always away. When you see something in news, it's always far away, but you never know when it could come close to you. So a lot of people will present solutions, which they sound good. They say, oh, universal background checks, but most of these shooters, like the shooter in Uvalde, bought the gun, and I'm pretty sure they did a background check on him because to get a gun, there needs to be background checks, unless like in a certain like areas where they wouldn't do it. Like let's say like a private gun seller selling a gun to you, the person doesn't usually do a background check. But the problem with background checks is if they do a background check on a person and you have no past criminal record, you have nothing, you're clean, they're gonna give you the gun. And the thing is, like, a background check cannot predict future behavior. It really can't because it's based off on the past. And someone in the next 6, 8, 1 year could drastically change from the person they were when they bought the gun. So, background checks definitely should be used, but to curb mass shootings, it's something that's it's not realistic because background checks are usually to check the past of the person to see if they could buy a gun in the present. And even though their background checks, a criminal could still use other ways to get guns because I hate when people compare America to, let's say, like Sweden or Australia. They say, well, this happened and they banned weapons. But the thing is, in America, it's a totally different society. This is why people need to stop comparing different societies because the culture is different, the people are different. And in America, there's something called the Second Amendment, which people hold very, very dearly. So it's, for example, if the government want to confiscate every single gun in America, it would be borderline impossible because first of all, there are over 400 million guns. There's more guns than more people in this country. Everybody in the country could own a gun. Second of all, people are not going to be willing to give the gun. That's people are always, it's embedded in their head that they have this trust for the government. And of course, we look at history from way back then. The British colonizing this country, they always had this distrust for the government. So for you to come to the house and take the Second Amendment, right? That's not going to be an easy thing. It's definitely going to lead to some civil conflicts between law enforcement and basic citizens. So that's definitely not going to happen. Then what else is being proposed? So something like, let's say, psychological problems, which kind of goes with background checks. The thing is, like, for psychological problems, who are you going to prevent from getting the gun? Because let's say someone could have, depression or I don't know, personality disorders. Like, what type of people do you need to kind of like sift out of the conversation in a way? Because there are some people who have mental disorders and they do need a gun and they will never do anything to anybody. But unfortunately, they've been put in a position where they have, psychological problems. Then this system definitely would have to sift them out, and they might need that gun for protection. So it's a lot of people. They always bring solutions to the table, but it's very hard for just one solution that will solve all these mass shootings. And the thing is, even prior, I think Columbine was the first school shooting in the States. Prior to 2000, there was no school shooting, right? And there were guns, and the gun regulation back then was way lower and way more lax than it was now. But people are still here killing people, but they didn't kill people back then. So definitely after Columbine, it was something that just became the norm. Then Sandy Hook happened, Parkland happened, all these types of uh, you know shootings happened, and then people will talk about guns. Of course, okay, maybe the guns were not as sophisticated as they were back then, but there were guns that could do damage back then, and people were just open with it, and no one, you know, fought any type of way when people would just carry a gun, like in the 1900s, the late 1900s, I would say, and there were no school shootings until 2000 when Columbine happened, and from then forward, shit just went down the fan, like shit went down the drain. It doesn't make any sense. So I would say it's something in the air, man, because we've lived in a society, America is very old, and this is the first time something like this is happening, school shootings. So like there needs to be like a problem we need to pinpoint, because it's definitely not the guns. You could say guns have existed prior to this, and they have not been school shootings prior to Columbine. So feel people definitely are the problem. I don't know what it is, you know, but it's something that needs to be like talked about more, because of course there's a lot of guns. If a criminal wants to do something, he's gonna find a way to do it. And of course, we should make it harder for them to purchase weapons, this and that. But in practice, it's not easy, because most of these people bought the guns legally, and look at them. They go up and shoot in schools. It must be a psychological problem or something, because there's no way a rational person would just even to take the anger. Like they said, the kid got bullied, okay, and so what? There are people who have been definitely bullied worse than him, and they don't take a gun to go shoot up elementary, you know, uh, school kids. Then there's also reports of police officers waiting for over 40 to an hour outside the school as the shooting happened. And there's another thing, people say armed guards. Armed guards are not going to really help the situation, because in this situation, there was an armed guard. When he crashed, so he shot his grandma, he crashed his car, then he was on his way to school, and there are conflicting reports that he saw that he met an armed guard and exchanged fire. Conflicting reports. Like, can you imagine? So a lot of people say armed guards, this and that. It's not a solution, because even in Parkland too, there was an armed guard who was scared to go in. These are police. These are police who's swear to protect, to serve and protect, but they didn't go into school for some time. So armed guards, it's not something that's gonna work too. Definitely not. And there's this thing about armed teachers, really, because a teacher is meant to go to school and teach the kids. Like this, the whole thing, like with metal detectors and building schools, so the shooter has a harder time navigating it. It's so bizarre, because schools are meant to be a safe environment to learn, to get a job in the future, and do whatever you want, just gain knowledge. But unfortunately, in the society we live in now, school is seen as this thing where, oh my God, you need to protect kids against school shootings. So it's a tough issue, and honestly, it's something that it's a sad thing. Kids should not be dying. Nobody, for that matter, especially nobody should be dying unjustly, especially kids. The only thing I would say is maybe increasing the age when it comes to buying weapons, because this is something that is seen mostly with young men. So maybe increasing the age, let's say, I don't know, 24, 25, because it's getting ridiculous, and there needs to be something in the table. And another thing, that even if there is a solution too, for it to pass, House, Senate, and the presidency, it's a whole process, from inception to its finish. It's gonna take some time. It's not something that's done. Government policies don't are not in fact immediately. They take a lot of time to start affecting what it's meant to affect. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say, man. It's a sad situation, and it's the whole cycle from the very beginning. I think I don't know, this generation. Maybe people hate each other more or something. because it's just like so weird for you to take all your problems on kids. What's that gonna do for you? And of course, the limits of mental illness and stuff. But I don't know. Maybe mental illness is probably the problem. Maybe they should fund more and make sure that these kids are good. And that's for parents too. A lot of parents would say, "Oh, that my kid is good. My kid is this and that." But you never know what your kid is capable of. And that's why, from the very beginning, you have to make sure that you train your kid right from the house before he steps outside and do something wrong. Make sure that your kid, knows how to respect people. He or she is just, a good person. But even so, kids could just go out there and do horrible things without you ever, predicting that. Yeah, but may their soul rest in peace, man. This has been happening for a very long time, and of course, people want gun control. It's a whole cycle. Come on now, everyone knows about it. Let's not pretend. It's yeah, but thank you guys for listening to me about school shootings and gun control, and peace.